Greetings and welcome to the writings of Soren Kierkegaard. We're trying something a little bit out of the ordinary today. We have a guest who tracked me down because I am a bit of a Kierkegaard aficionado. I don't call myself an expert. I'm an amateur, which means, in the Latin word, means to love. I don't get paid for it. And today's guest, how would you like me to introduce you to the Timothy Andrew McIntosh? Call you Tim, call you
Call me Tim.
Timothy.
Call me
Call you,
Tim. That'd be great.
I call you Tam. You do like a
TAM, right?
yeah, TAM. That sounds pretty good. So we're going to talk about a play that you've recently. Well, I guess you've been working on it for a while, but it's going to be at the University of Chattanooga here. I've been down to Chattanooga before recently, within the last couple of years. Nice mountain.
It's a great
community.
little town.
Oh yeah, I like those mountain communities. I lived in West Virginia for a few years, so I have an affinity for mountains and stuff. So why don't you do a quick bio of yourself and talk about? Why don't you just mention the play first and just some just some factoids about the play, and then about yourself, and then we'll move into some questions that we worked on together, and we can go from there.
So I did a theology degree about 25 years ago, and while I was working on my thesis, I had to write a thesis for the graduation requirements. I'd kind of fallen in love with Kierkegaard, and I asked permission from my advisor if I could write a play about his life, and I expected him to say no, but he said yes.
Okay,
Just you have to write a theological companion piece to it, but but write the play and go for it. So I did, and I wrote, and I had never written for theater before. I had no acting experience. I had no directorial experience, but I loved the idea of writing a play, and so I wrote a really, really big, bloated, overcasted, prolix play about Kierkegaard's life.
Bloated is usually not a good word. I'm trying to think if bloated could ever work in any
when
context.
Is bloated a good word? That's a great question.
Like 99.99% of the time, it's just bad.
Our bloated deficit, that's not what we want.
I talk about this sometimes in the podcast. I said like the United States has lost some credibility. We're like $39 trillion in debt. Just the federal government. That's not good. So you go for a theology degree. Where were you going to school?
Reformed Theological Seminary. This is a while ago.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And I wrote the play, and my advisor's name was John Frame.
Okay, I know the name. I know he's pretty big in Presbyterian circles, or at least Reformed circles. I don't know if he's officially Presbyterian. I think he is.
I think he is, and he's got I think he's got some music in his background. I want to say that he's, I don't know if he's a flautist. I can't remember, but he was really gracious in reading it. And I want to say I won an award for this play. And I mean it, Eric. This is not false humility when I say it was a bad play. It was a bad play. It was terrible, but someone liked it enough. I entered a few contests, and someone liked, I think, the material enough to give me a chance. And so they even cut me a little check. It was really nice. And it was really encouraging. And I think it probably also delayed me throwing the piece in the trash, which I should have done a lot earlier than I did. But I eventually threw it in the trash, knowing
the bloated piece of
the bloated piece. I mean, it was probably
bloated.
It was probably 120 pages. It was,
oh man, that is big.
It was really big.
Yeah.
But I knew, even if I threw it into the trash, that I would come back to the material at some point. And so I kept writing plays. I learned how to act. I learned how to direct. I kind of did all of the craft work of being part of a theater production. And I came back to the play probably 2.5 years ago and wrote a completely different play just because I'm passionate about our guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's cool. So, what did you get your degree at Reformed? What was your goal of getting a?
It's a little bit obscure, but I was part of a church that was created before the PCA existed. So the PCA is kind of like a sub, maybe you know this, division within Presbyterian world. And the pastor of that church was an older man, Pastor Dan, and there was no official relationship between that church and the PCA. The PCA, or the church, was kind of under care, I think is the technical language. It was under the care of PCA, but it wasn't in any like formal relationship. And I was like, all right, in the future, it would be good to have a formal relationship between that church that I was attending and the PCA, and it would be really nice if they had someone with a RTS degree on
Got it.
board.
Okay, got it. Makes perfect sense. So, did you use the biography mainly for your play that you wrote 25 years ago? Were you pretty much using the Joachim Garf biography?
The first biography that I used was Walter Lowry's short
Okay.
biography of
Yeah.
Kierkegaard,
Yeah.
which was a really say.
Lowry was one of the first. Yeah, he was one of the
Yeah,
first to
that's
do
right.
translations. Yeah. Mhm.
That's right. And I think this one was there were a couple of moments that Lowry just kind of admits, look, I'm a big fan of Kierkegaard. There's a moment, maybe about 2/3 of the way through, he kind of puts down the biographer mask for a little bit, and he says, I'm just going to admit I'm a lover of Kierkegaard, and I also admit that he was a really complex, confusing, probably aggravating character. But going into the last years of his life, this is the Kierkegaard that I loved the most as a person.
Got it.
And I remember reading that, and it made a real mark on me.
Sure. That makes sense.
And that's the material that I came back to for this play. So this play is only about the last few years of his life. There are, if you know much about Kierkegaard's biography, there are some sort of milestone moments. His break with Regina, his courtship of Regina and break with Regina, his fiancée. There are milestone moments in his life, and I have telescoped those as to appear parts of his like very vibrant memory.
Got it.
But it's really about these last few years of his life and his affection for the Danish church and his rupture from the Danish church.
Yeah, I've been reading the biography backwards, the Garf biography backwards. I was reading forwards until you contacted me and was so, well, it's probably good for me to start at the end and
close to the end. Yeah.
But as I'm being introduced to people like, I don't know who this person is, Grundwig, who's that dude?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
But it's interesting because like today was was when Regina sought him out in the streets of Copenhagen to say goodbye. Like it wasn't dramatic,
my goodness.
And it wasn't big, but it was like something like, may God be good to you, or something. It was just like a very kind, and anybody who's kind of, knows the story of Soren, that's not a great part of his life in terms of how he severed that relationship or attempted to. And she still is like obviously super influential in his writings and all that. But
and that was the day that she got on the boat to go to the West Indies with her with her husband,
and that was going to be 5 years.
She probably knew, I'm never going to see him again. He's never going to see me again. Yeah. And tell me if this is wrong. My memory of the biography says something along the lines of, she didn't really know where he would be. She just assumed that she could find him in the street, and so she rushed out into the street and was fortunate enough to kind of run into him.
Yeah. That time frame of Copenhagen, it wasn't a huge city. I mean, I forget the population, but I remember thinking it's probably the size of like Lancaster City, maybe about the size of Chattanooga. I don't know how big Chattanooga is. It's maybe larger than Lancaster City. And it was the kind of place that you could run into people, especially if you traveled like the common corridor. And so, and I don't think she told her husband either. I think there was like, she kind of withheld because that probably wouldn't have been very helpful to say, I'm going to go say goodbye to your sword.
Right.
So it's kind of,
to your point about Copenhagen, it's also probably, the public spaces are probably a lot more dense than, say, Atlanta. Like Atlanta's
absolutely.
Center spaces are really spread out. I think Copenhagen is really tight.
It's got wide streets, but it is packed. It's a bit of a, it's big. Like what I remember, I was there maybe, it wasn't maybe, I'm trying to think of the time was. It wasn't last October. It was 2 Octobers ago. And it's a super walkable city still. And a lot of the places that Soren frequented were very easy to walk to. He was a walker.
Yeah.
Soren loved to walk. And when he's getting harassed by children and other people on the street because of the Corsair affair, where he's being mocked and the caricatures and stuff, he stopped walking. And I thought that was the worst thing for him,
because he didn't want to be seen in public and expose himself to ridicule.
He got tired of being jeered at and stuff.
Yeah.
I think he still walked. Now, officially, his dad, he was part of the upper class as a child, so his father didn't want him out on the streets. because that was the work of the hired staff, you know.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so he developed a very vivid imagination because it was a pseudonymous work where he talks about being walked around the house, you know, but he was using kind of himself as, according to the biographer, this is really Soren telling his own story. Um, and so he would like visualize what his dad was talking about, like, oh, we're passing here, and this is what you see, and so apparently Soren got a little bit of a imagination kind of trigger from that. I don't know if that's the right word, but he loved to walk, and he was a person that would talk to people of all different social classes, which was really unusual. And if we have time, I'll tell you a story because it's super funny. When he died, a bunch of the street people showed up at his funeral, and it caused a stink, literally. But it was probably some were there for the right reasons and some were there for the wrong reasons because they went into the Church of Our Lady, I think, and it's very formal. And just to have it at the church in general was considered a bit. They weren't sure they should do it at the church, you know, the funeral. But yeah, it caused this huge like uproar. So Soren went out on a bang.
Believe me, it's in the play.
That's great.
It's definitely in the play.
That is awesome. Because Johannes, my buddy Johannes in Denmark and Copenhagen, he was my tour guide, and I already knew a lot. So he's like, "Well, I'm gonna give you the advanced tour since you know enough already. Let's take it up a notch and take you to some different places and stuff."
So did you see the church where no way.
Yeah, it's got the beautiful.
This is like holy of holies stuff for me, you know.
Yeah, it's like it's got that statue. You haven't. I don't think you mentioned that you read Training in Christianity. I don't think you mentioned that you did. I was looking over the books that you said you'd read.
Right.
Okay, so in Training in Christianity, like the beginning chapters is that verse in Matthew where Jesus says, "Come to me, all that you are heavily laden, and I will give you rest." Well, that's carved at the bottom of the statue in the front of the church. It's inside the church, and I have a video of it. I when I was there, it was like a kind of a Saturday or something. But the statue's probably, I don't want to exaggerate, probably 20, 25 feet height of Jesus. And so Soren talks about seeing the statue and seeing the scripture verse, and his beginning chapters of Training Christianity is about that verse, and that's what kind of provoked it. And I think he used to occasionally preach there before he fell out of favor. So yeah, when I got there, I was like, oh, and I was reading the book when I was on the plane going over to Copenhagen. To see it in person was kind of blew me away.
So you were reading Training in Christianity, or you were reading the Garf biography?
I was reading Training Christianity when I went to Copenhagen. The Garf biography I only got maybe within the last year or so. But I had begun reading Training Christianity on the flight over Copenhagen, or soon before I hopped on the plane. I was reading it on the plane, and I was reading it in Copenhagen. So it was super cool to have that connection of the statue of Jesus. And in Reformed circles, it's a little controversial to have, you know, because you talk about Lutheran or Reformed traditions, the idea that art and statues and artwork can glorify God. It's always a bit of a tenuous issue. But Church of Our Lady had originally been a Catholic church, and during the Reformation, they were trying to figure out how to configure it as a Lutheran church. So they came up with the name of Church of Our Lady. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, that scripture verse is right there, and I've been to the church, and it's a beautiful facility. Absolutely.
One day I'm going to go there, and I'm going to take my wife there. The poor woman has suffered me talking about Kierkegaard so often.
It's a beautiful trip.
Yeah, she might relish it despite me.
Yeah.
One thing, Eric, talking about the uproar at his funeral. I mean, in a way, you could tell the story of the play just by telling about that. Like, why would there be an uproar at his funeral? And one of the other things about his last days that is really vivid to me is that I believe it was a niece who went to go see him in the hospital and said that he was as happy as she had ever seen him in his life, and he knew he was going to die. Yeah, there is something. I mean, those are the sorts of details that I think about this man who is, I think, heralded rightly as one of the most interesting and complex and insightful philosophers of the last 250 years. but he was so unlike so many philosophers that I've been exposed to in the Western tradition, maybe most like Socrates, in that he was not just creating air castles, but there was a sense of mission,
Oh, absolutely.
a deep and profound mission that not only shaped his writings, but that corresponded in his biography. That's the reason why I haven't been able to let this go for 25 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah.
When something sticks with you for so long, like you're meant to do it.
Yeah.
The biography is interesting because Joachim Garf is accessing a lot of his journals, which maybe Soren wanted them to be public, but they're not his official, published books or whatnot. So you get a different side of things, maybe
Yes.
the more subjective, how he's feeling about things. So tell us about the name of the play, and then we'll focus on the play. But it sounds like it's going to end in an interesting. It's going to capture that last scene that we were talking about, which it does kind of point you in the direction this was a consequential life.
Yeah. There's a part of the play that happens on the first 2 pages.
Just remind us what the name of the play is again.
I'm sorry. My name is Soren Kierkegaard.
There we go.
And how do I say this? Something happened in the first 2 parts of the play that I would like to be a surprise for the audience. So if there's somebody out there who's listening that's like, I've got to go see this play, fast forward 2 minutes, but I'm just going to describe it.
All right.
It starts with a single character on stage, and it's Soren, and he's speaking directly to us, and we hear him being contradicted by somebody off stage, another male voice off stage. And we find out within, like I said, first 2.5 pages, that Soren has split in half. And so there are only 2 actors on the stage, Soren and Kierkegaard. And my telling of his life is that there is this sort of divide between, I will call it his affection for his city and his world and his family and his church.
Right.
And there is an antipathy to all of those same things, and trying to find some real unity. And I don't mean peace, but I do mean unity between those 2 characters on the stage is the upshot of the play. I like how it's presented, because I think it's a little confusing at first. Like, what is this external voice happening off stage? And so I don't want to rob anyone who's seeing the play for the first time of experiencing that. But that is prologue. The play puts Soren in a position where he is training to be a priest, which is a lot of his life. It was an earlier part of his life. And he is coming in confrontation with 2 figures, Meinster, J.P. Meinster, who ended up being the bishop, the kind of like highest position in the Danish Lutheran state church, and Martensen, a really prominent professor at the time. And to make the conflict was basically over what we might call today something like nationalism or Christian nationalism.
Right.
And I think the timing of the play is pretty nice, because I don't know about the crowds that you run in, Eric, but I'm starting to hear kind of like talk about overt Christian nationalism in the United States becoming like a real viable choice. Whereas when I first wrote this play, oh my gosh, that was a laughable concept, I mean, like maybe really fringy, but in mainstream, a laughable concept. And now, the New York Times is inviting guests on that are avowedly Christian nationalists in favor of kind of like restoring some sort of Christendom in the United States. If you know anything about Kierkegaard, I know you do, this would be anathema to him.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think trying to create a world within the play that this sounds like a viable choice for the Danish clergy is one of the challenges as a playwright that I really had to deal with. Like, how do you recreate a world that it sounds like a really viable, compelling choice, especially to a world where this sounds, to most ears, probably like a little bit of craziness.
Sure, absolutely. And Soren was in an age of like enlightenment,
Yep.
it's like you had a lot of skeptics. People said, well, I've had some online discussions with people where say, well, if Kierkegaard had lived in the current age, he wouldn't have been a religious writer. And I'm like,
Mm.
you're assuming there weren't skeptics back then. There were plenty of skeptics. Thomas Paine from the American Revolution.
Right. Right.
It was deep, and it like I think the argument could be like the Danish church could say, well, the enemies of the church are all around. If the state doesn't protect the church,
Yep.
what would keep it from turning into the French Revolution or something? Where it's just all clerical affiliation in the Catholic Church, or any priest is now in danger for their life, and property gets confiscated and all that kind of stuff.
It's such a great point.
Yeah.
I think the French Revolution is an event of such incredible, terrifying magnitude on the French mainland. We don't have any sort of, not even the American Revolution is anything close to an approximation of that.
Yeah, it's not even close.
So we don't have that in our rear view mirror. But for Danish clergy, the idea that growing liberality could lead to hedonism and anarchism, I think is there's an event, the French Revolution, not too far in the rear view mirror that makes that feel like a palpable possibility. And we are not going to go back there, you guys. We've got to really be solid on the state church here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's absolutely true. And if you think about like Martin Luther, even though it was a repudiation of Catholicism. He depended on like Frederick the Great or whoever was his protector. He needed the arm of the state.
Yeah.
In a way that Germany was kind of configured at the time, had it was the Holy Roman Empire and all that kind of stuff. But Luther wasn't, he wasn't an Anabaptist. He was protected and given security by the civil authorities. So the argument could be if the civil authorities are not pro-Christian, then it's hard to be neutral, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
The argument
that's a whole podcast right there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Take that one on someday.
I just go on and on. I get cut off after an hour with Riverside for good reason. So you start off the play. We already talked about that, and you don't want to give away too much because you want to entice people to come. And it sounds like you're going to take the play on the road too. This is your launching point in Chattanooga, and it sounds like the theater company was moved from California.
That's right.
I think that was fairly recent too. I don't think that was way back, but maybe it's
2 years ago. That's right. Okay. Frank Mihilich is the founder and the director of the play, and founder and director of New Threads Theater. Moved from close to L.A. to Chattanooga. He had kind of a community in Chattanooga that kept beckoning him to come. In Frank's telling, L.A. is a great town for movies. It's a really tough town for theater. And so we'd have access to really great actors, but his audiences wanted to be part of like cinema world. And so he moved his family to Chattanooga. And yes, this is the first full production that we'll do July 23 through 26. And after that, there sure seems to be an audience out there waiting for the play. And I wonder also if there might be a university tour somewhere in its future, because young university students have seen preview performances, scripted readings of the play, and there's just a lot of enthusiasm there. And this actually brings me to a question that I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
There is something about Kierkegaard that enlivens young hearts, right? Like my 70-year-old dad, I think, would have read Kierkegaard and thought, interesting. Gosh, he wrote a lot. Gosh, he goes in 100 different directions. Boy, it sure seems, in my experience teaching college students, Kierkegaard is always a bright light among the pantheon of all of these, 18th, 19th, 20th century writers. I wonder if you've experienced the same thing, and if so, do you have an explanation?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to put it back on you too, since you work more with college kids. I've worked with college kids, but my audience is more high school.
Yeah.
I think there's something peculiar about the college experience, which is you're starting to fly, like at least we used to. I think it's changed a bit because parents are more,
protective.
protective, and technology doesn't help. And, like if we wanted to get something from our parents, we had to pick up the phone and, share that phone with 40 other people too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we weren't wired in any sense of reality. But I think it's an existential time. I think it's not unusual for people to say, well, I've been raised a certain way, and whether they concur with how they were raised as a religious person or not. I mean, I know what spoke to me and why Schaeffer was discouraging. I mean, we've talked a little bit by email about how Francis Schaeffer really wasn't a fan of Soren. And he kind of got me off the track of Soren for quite some times, because in my groups, Schaeffer was very influential, as he was for you. But I think Soren talks about real things. I think he talks about a lot of truth. When I read Fear and Trembling, was the first book I read of Kierkegaard's, and that was a while back, because I was writing a book for students going to college, and Kierkegaard kept coming up in quotes, like life can be understood backwards but must be lived forwards, and these kind of things, which is, a good word for college kids because they want answers. And some answers we don't have access to them because they haven't happened yet,
Yeah.
And the past is somewhat of a, paradigm, but it doesn't mean that the world won't change that, or something won't occur that will break your paradigm. So I think Kierkegaard and Camus could be the same way. I don't even know if it's necessarily has to be a religious writer. It just has to be a writer that addresses important topics. And most college kids are, in their most overt public sense, are not looking like they're searching. But I would argue a lot of behaviors associated with college, the excess, are a way of testing whether life really means anything or not, or is this just time to play? And I think anybody who's in the party scene long enough realizes that it kind of runs short after a while, and maybe you're starting to look for more substantial answers. Maybe the party scene kind of goes, and then you're like, well, there's got to be something more than this. So I think it's developmental. My Ph.D. studies were on the transition from high school to college, and I wrote a book called On the Edge, Transitioning Imaginatively to College. And again, Kierkegaard kept appearing, and I was like, I wonder if Schaeffer was wrong,
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have normally thought that. I thought, well, Francis, I could normally trust his reads on things, but maybe he wasn't correct. And I just said he couldn't have read Kierkegaard enough to really have that viewpoint. It's only in a couple of his books. I have Schaeffer books right here. And my buddy who runs the row house, Tom Becker, we did an interview with Soren. My friend Jeremiah is an actor, so I know this. I'm going down a rabbit trail a little bit, but stick with me. Jeremiah Miller is an actor, and I met him because he had written a play about Soren also called Full Leap,
Yeah.
So I met Jeremiah as Soren, and then at some point, Jeremiah became a Christian through Soren's writings.
Oh, wow.
It was very helpful for him to see the gospel in a new light. And so Tom Becker from the Row House, we did an interview with Soren at a local it's a converted church. It's called West Art. It's like a community center.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful. And we addressed it in there, like how Schaeffer was really not into Soren and was kind of skeptical of upper story.
Yeah.
Schaeffer thinks about in categories and this upper story stuff. And I think it just dissuaded me that he had something to say. And then I started reading him for himself, and I was shocked. And I was like, I wish I had this in college. So let me ask you the question: Why do you think college kids respond so much to Soren? I gave you my 2 cents.
I would give a very similar answer. I think Soren strips away a lot of pretense.
Mm-hmm.
There's a book, I've not read it. I forget the author's name. Soren Kierkegaard, Philosopher of the Heart.
Oh, I have that book. Yeah.
Have you read it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's fairly recently. It's published within the last 5 years, I think. For sure. I have it downstairs.
I do.
I might even have it in my Kierkegaard library over here. I bought every book from the Princeton University Press that Soren had published in his lifetime. So I have
really?
I have about 35 books. Every time around this time every year, Princeton University Press has a half off of their entire catalog. So I had just
you swoop in and get the Kierkegaard titles.
I retired 4 years ago, and I'm like, this is my graduation gift from retirement. What's the right word? Retirement gift. So, tell me what you think about why Soren's so popular, because it strips away pretenses. He's religious, but he's not smarmy about it. It seems like it really matters to him.
Right. I think there's a sort of healthy skepticism around some of the trappings of church stuff.
Yeah.
Church culture that, especially, boy, I didn't read Kierkegaard when I was a young person, but had I read it, that would have really appealed to me.
Sure.
So yeah, I think it's all of these things. I remember, I don't know if you ever read First Things magazine, but
Sometimes.
There was their then editor-in-chief, Richard John Newhouse,
Yeah, he was the guy.
did a really nice article on Kierkegaard before he died, and it was called Kierkegaard for Grown-Ups.
Okay, I got to look that up. That sounds really interesting.
It's really good. And his general thesis is people fall in love with Kierkegaard as young people, and then they kind of put him in a little box called adolescence or something like that. Yeah. And he said,
that was just like a brief foray into
I had a little Kierkegaard experience. And he's just making the case, no, there's something actually really profound here. This is for adults also, and maybe it's especially for adults who've gotten a little bit weary, or they feel like they're going through the motions or something like that. Like, this is not just for adolescents. Kierkegaard's got something really profound to say.
Mm-hmm. You know who else liked Soren Kierkegaard, which we would probably never suspect, but very well-known radio preacher has his own.
Who?
R.C. Sproul.
No kidding.
When I found out R.C. Sproul liked Kierkegaard, because I think he went through a Kierkegaard phase himself.
Yeah. When
he was younger, and like R.C. was a scholar, which is unusual for like being a mainstream preacher or whatever. But yeah, he I think that's one of the things that kind of pushed me in the direction of giving Kierkegaard another chance. When I would hear R.C. occasionally throw in something from Kierkegaard, and his R.C. mentioned something in one of his sermons about something of how Christ is a protector or covering for the world's sin, and it's a very beautiful, it's the gospel, but said in such a winsome, beautiful way. That R.C. We had put that at the end of our play that we did or the interview that I did with Jeremiah, because it was just perfect.
Oh wow!
It's like it just touches your heart because it's just so beautifully said. Yeah, that's cool. So R.C. Sproul.
I thought R.C. Sproul would have been. I know certainly who he is.
Yeah.
But I would have thought he would have been a little bit too. Kierkegaard would have been a little bit too maybe romantic for him or something like that.
Yeah. R.C. was really affected by L'Abri also.
Was he really?
Yeah, he went through the L'Abri thing, and he created like a similar thing to L'Abri here in Pennsylvania called Ligonier, or I'm not sure that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah, of course.
But that's where like a fort was during the French-Indian War, like what we call the French-Indian War. And it's Western Pennsylvania. And so he had a study center there and all kinds of stuff. And then he moved eventually to Florida. But that wasn't at the beginning of his ministry. He wanted to replicate, I think, what Schaeffer did, maybe with a little bit more official reform teaching. I don't know.
Okay.
But I think R.C. was kind of an artist in a way, even though he was kind of an evidentialist in terms of how he preached and pretty cohesive in terms of his message. I think he had the heart of an artist too, sort of.
I never knew that. I've heard little blurbs and maybe a sermon or two, but I had no idea about that.
And I don't know if he had moved on, but at some point Kierkegaard had a profound influence on him. I think he would have said that. Like maybe he didn't refer as much to him in the current sense when he was still, older pastor. Maybe he didn't, but it seemed like there was always a place in his heart for Kierkegaard. So you said Schaeffer probably never even read Kierkegaard, and that was my suspicion because as I started to read Kierkegaard, I was like, yeah, he's got a beef with the church, but he's Orthodox. He's like one of these really unusual, and this is, I think, what your play is getting at. Like you got these contrasting traits, which rather than distancing himself and saying, I'm just done with Christianity because it's enough of that.
Yeah.
Which is, people go in that direction. Well, I was a believer, and I went to church, and I had Bible study, I was a teacher, a leader, whatever. And then I repudiated all. Like these stories are rife these days. You have all these pastors that are now deconstructing or whatever that were fairly influential at one point. But Soren never did that. Like he was like, no, I have major concerns, and it's based on the words of Jesus. And I was reading in the biography today that he just said, I just want to tell the truth. He says, I'm not a better Christian than anybody. like this is like to me, this is what kind of impresses me about him. He's not saying like I'm going, you know, I'm not any better as a Christian than anybody. I'm just reading what the words actually say, and I'm telling you what they say. So how do you merge these two things together? It almost sounds Hegelian that you have these two different sides. Now, great prophets do have a heart for the people, like Jeremiah, Isaiah. They're not like, oh, burn in hell, you people, like
Right,
you're done.
right.
They always have like, I'm first, you know, I'm the impure one, and now God's calling me to judge the nation or to speak God's judgment upon Israel or whatever, Judah. But they never like Kierkegaard or Soren, they never repudiate the faith. It's just the
Mm,
opposite. Like
mm.
their concerns are causing them to commit deeper, not in an institutional sense, but in a real sense. So, how do you merge these two things together? I imagine that you're trying to bring facets of this dude's personality, which may be hard to put into one
Right,
into one play.
right. Well, now I'm going to like reveal the thing that I revealed at the beginning again, but I think having two actors makes it a lot easier because the thing that I kept getting stuck on, Eric, was that how could this guy be so adored in social circles
Mm-hmm.
on the one hand
Mm-hmm.
and say the things that he said or write the things that he wrote, which would have certainly caused bitter heartache to the people that adored him in public. I just kept trying
Absolutely.
to reconcile these two things. And
Yeah.
finally, I just recognized these are not reconcilable things.
Mm-hmm.
The things that he said in his journals that are aggressive and pointed and prophetic, that is part of the same person that mixes
Mm-hmm.
well with others and goes to salons and goes to church and is adored by many people. Those are the same people. So how do I articulate that
Yeah.
on the stage? And I
Uh-huh.
couldn't do it with just one actor. I needed to
Makes
have
sense.
two actors. So in a way, when I'll tell you a little story.
Yeah.
Again, having written that play 25 years ago, knowing that I was always going to come back to Kierkegaard, but I just needed to wait until I knew that it was the right time. I had a conversation with my friend Larry. Larry and his wife are both therapists. Larry is a huge Soren Kierkegaard fan, and so Larry and I would go have coffee, and we would talk about this book, or we'd talk about that book, or something from the journals. And this one day, Larry said to me, he said, you know, Christine, his wife, said to me the other day, the more you talk about Kierkegaard, the more he sounds like maybe he's clinically divided.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
True.
I was like,
Mm.
what? Christine said that? How dare she? This is
Yeah.
one of the
Right.
great minds of the 19th century, you know? And I snapped into this sort of defensive posture that somehow he would be diminished if he was like suffering some sort of acute mental illness.
Sure. He wouldn't be the
But then
first. Yeah. He wouldn't be the
he
first.
would not be the first, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then I started thinking more about him, and I think I reread Garf,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, oh my goodness, there's so much evidence here that he was, that something was going on, and I
Sure.
mean like little evidences. I hope I don't exaggerate this. In 3 years, 7 major works in 3 years. Just the torrential outpour
I know.
of words is. How do you do that if there's not something going on close to mania?
I think it's unparalleled in literary history. Like I can't even read.
Really?
I can't even read the books that fast. You know what I mean? Like if somebody were to
Yes.
say, like, okay, you have 33 books here, and you have the time it took Soren to write these and publish these, I'd be like, I have other stuff to do.
Yeah.
Like I like Kierkegaard, but there's no way I'm gonna do that. So I'm hoping to finish by the time I'm 90.
Right.
You know, what I do with Kierkegaard is I just take on a book at a time. I don't know how many podcasts you've listened to, but I take a book on a time and I read it line for line and I pontificate upon it.
Mm.
And it's my own way of doing it, but it's a long process. And I'm only
Yeah.
on the fourth book right now, which is Training Christianity.
Yeah.
And the ones I did before were 18 Upbuilding Discourses. I did Lily of the Field, Bird of the Air, which I love that book. It's such a kind, generous, beautiful book. I like being outdoors, and it just speaks to me that way. And then Purity of Heart is the Will One Thing. And I got that book at Powell's Book in Portland, of all places.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love that
I went
place.
to Powell's bookstore in Portland on Christmas Eve day, and I got right there when it opened, and I rifled in and got some coffee and got some books, and I walked out and I read Purity of Heart is the one thing, and it's not translated by the Hongs, who did a great deal of the translation work. And it's always interesting to compare translations. Lowry might have done that one. I'm not sure. I'd have to check to see who the translator was on Purity of Heart is the one thing, but it's an older book. It was kind of falling apart, because Powell deals a lot with used books.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Oh, I love Powell's.
It's so
Powell.
great.
I lived in Portland for 2 summers, and I spent way too much time
That's
and
where
money at
Gutenberg
Powell's.
is. That's
So it's in Eugene, which is about an hour and a half.
That's right. It's in Eugene.
An hour and a half away.
That's where the university is. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
The university's up in Eugene with all the runners that came out of there, all the cross country guys and that stuff.
Yeah. What's the famous guy's name?
Oh, the Nike guy, Steve, whatever his name is, Steve Knight or something. Is that it? Oh, I know the other guy,
Phil Knight.
Yeah, Phil Knight. That's LaFontaine or whatever that guy was.
LaFontaine. That's who I'm trying to think
of.
He was
a rock star. That dude was a rock star.
Man. He was a rock star.
In terms of a runner, man, that dude was, I think he got killed in a car crash or something
he
tragic.
Did, yeah. He was kind of James Dean of like distance running.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So you used a good, it's not even a technique, but having 2 Sorens allows you to have this inward world kind of exposed to the audience. Like this is going back and forth in his mind to some degree. I'm sure you've used this text very heavily, like a lot of your play probably is a good deal of what Soren actually wrote. I would imagine that you've used some of actual writings to try to show this.
Here's the thing, that in the first draft, in the first play that I wrote, tons. And I found it did not help the play.
It became bloated.
The way that it became bloated. So the way that I thought about it was, I have ingested so much of this man's writings.
Makes sense.
I'm just going to let it come out, and I'm not going to try to preserve the text, because I would love it if people finish the play and they're like, I'm going to go read some of him. Yeah. That's like I think a great goal to have. But if the play lags, drags, suffers because I'm trying to cram word for word translations, into the text, then I'm not going to hold myself to that. And that was a really hard hurdle to get over, because I respect the man enough that I want to be faithful to him. But in being faithful to him, I really felt like that the play was suffering, the characterizations was suffering.
Sure.
And so I had to just give myself permission to not do that.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure if I were to look over the script of your play, I could say, okay, I remember Soren said something like this, because you've ingested enough. I could see that working.
I hope so.
I think I had a friend that was a filmmaker out in LA, and he was talking to me the difference between like a book and a film, which is on a film you have to be really concentrated. You can't do the book. You've got to work in much bigger themes.
Yeah.
And I assume like doing a play is probably the same thing. I
think so.
There's 2 different art forms, and the book is designed to be something that could be. I mean, Soren's frustrating to read sometimes, and since I do him line by line, I mean, I'm trying to hide my fatigue sometimes. I'm like, here we go, I got to put a good, but I'm like, I said I was going to do it, and I'm going to finish this book. Once I decide like this way of doing Kierkegaard doesn't work, then I'll just finish the book that I'm working on. But I've tried to do summaries before. And for me, I just like to read in his own words, because it's my podcast. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, if people don't like it, they don't have to listen.
Right.
This is what works for me. But, if I was more professional and more into it and all that, I'd probably okay, I read the book, and now I'm going to give you the 10 major things that I pulled from it. And then I'll be able to...
I've got to tell you this. So I taught at Gutenberg College, Eugene, Oregon. And it's a very unique curriculum. It's a little bit modeled after the St. John's.
St. John's, sure. Yep. Mm-hmm.
One of the classes that we do, all 4 years, is we do microexegesis. So microexegesis is basically the class sits in a circle and you read a book, a paragraph at a time, and the microexegesis book for the junior year reading is Concluding Unscientific Postscript.
Oh, I haven't read that one yet. I've read parts of it, yeah.
It is hard.
Oh,
it is hard work. And so our students, they're juniors by the time they read this. By the time they get to be juniors at Gutenberg College, they're great readers. Like they're just great readers.
Yeah.
But my understanding is they never made it through that book before the end of the year because it's just such a hard slog. So you can just imagine you and I and 6 of our classmates are sitting in a circle. I read a paragraph and I try to say, it means this. Argument ensues. Some sort of whatever agreement is reached. And then you do the next torture, and you do that for a year.
So Lily of the Field and Bird of the Air. I would suggest a curriculum change. Because the message of Lily of the Field, Bird of the Air is very simple. It's just be still, and you can be beautiful. Like he uses this example, like a flower can be on top of a pile of manure, and it's still beautiful.
Wow,
it hasn't chosen where it's planted. It's still a beautiful flower. So I give that section of Lily of the Field, Bird of the Air to graduates from high school.
Really?
Don't let the world tarnish you. Like God's going to plant you somewhere, and it may not be where you want, but you can still be beautiful where you are.
Yeah.
I think it's just a great message.
Yeah,
I got
absolutely.
Like the idea of being still, just be still. It's cool. I'm working on an essay right now. My buddy Tom, who has the row house, he made some suggestions of corrections I have to work on this essay, but it's about stillness and how our current age is just we're overstimulated and understimulated at the same time. It's really an unusual kind of bifurcation, and both are very unsatisfying ultimately.
We're kind of overabsorbed on information and less intelligent maybe than we've been in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got about 14 minutes left before the Riverside authorities put into. Sometimes it goes longer. So this is a funny story. I was interviewing 2 professors, and they were father and son. And they were at 2 different universities, but I think they were in the same room together, of all things. But they teach at 2 different places, and they're scholars, Karl Barth scholars. And so I got the book. I got their books, and they were comparing Barth to Kierkegaard. How Kierkegaard really influenced Barth, but Barth had kind of distanced himself. But it was really funny. We came up to an hour, and I said, "Okay, that's it, guys." And because I'm get cut off in an hour, and it just kept going. Like I was like, "It's not supposed to." And I kind of signed off, but they didn't. And they were talking afterwards between themselves. Like I was like done. I clicked out. I'm finished.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's over. And they were from Scotland or something, so they had that Scottish brogue, And the dad says to the son, and this is like I only heard it in replay. That was outstanding. And I'm like I wasn't even looking for that compliment. So it's just funny.
Oh, that's great.
That I preserved. I'm like I'm not going to edit that out. So we have about 13 minutes left. So take it away. You got 10 more minutes.
Tell me why Barth distanced himself from Kierkegaard.
I think he wanted to be seen as being more original. Like maybe he wanted to be the influential theologian and not admit that he was so heavily influenced. Because Barth was kind of an interesting bird. I didn't know much about him until I read the book and had to do some research as a background.
Yeah.
Like he would fit the category of neo-orthodox. Like what comes out of his mouth sounds like he is very, very like reformed, or at least in that direction.
Yeah.
Like God speaks and we believe, that's it. But he was doing weird stuff at the same time. Like he if you don't know this, it's a little shocking. Like he's a churchman, he's a leading theologian of his time, and he's married to his wife, and then he's got a mistress.
I know all about this. Yeah.
He's got a mistress that lives in the house with him. It's like his admin assistant. It's like super weird.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to get into this in the podcast because it's going to be like, Jerry, like, this is weird. I don't know how the man can live with himself.
Yeah.
So I think he wanted to distance himself, and he didn't want to admit that he had been so influenced. So maybe it was just kind of the original thing. Like, we all owe a debt to gratitude to Kierkegaard, and, and maybe he just had a hard time doing it.
Yeah. I wonder.
I don't know.
Karl Barth is a fascinating, really fascinating character to me because of the Barmen Declaration. I think of the Barmen Declaration as like, boy, Kierkegaard's fingerprints are all over it. And I love to think that, like, in some way, Kierkegaard was he fighting the socialist regime in Germany like 100 years before it came about? I love that thought.
I mean, that's what we talked about in the podcast. I said, regardless of like Bart's personal life, which sounds a little bit
Yeah,
dysfunctional, the fact he had penned that declaration was very courageous. That he took a
very.
stand. He took a stand early on, and I said, well, give the man his due. Like
Yeah.
he did something that wasn't particularly popular at the time, and he called this thing out. Like he called it out.
Hmm.
Like it's going to be an issue. It's going to be really bad. And the state church is an interesting thing. Like Denmark, it was like a dead church, and then in Germany, it was a dead church that became virulent. Like Kierkegaard doesn't talk about that in his books a lot. Like what's going to happen if the
Yeah.
church is allied with the state? Like what could happen? What are the consequences of this marriage that's really going to cascade? I think he had a sensing of it. Because like if you're like criticizing like the pastor because he has lush robes and all that, there's a place for that, but it's not
Yeah.
like people are losing their heads or getting
Right.
put into
Right.
concentration camps. So I think Bart was very influenced by Kierkegaard's distrust of the alliance, because if the church is allied with the state is going to win. Because
Right. Right.
the state is worldly, like it's going to have all the levers of power
Yep.
and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that's
So there's something going on in Kierkegaard's time which I think is really informing or maybe fueling some of his disdain for the state church or his deep skepticism, and it's this baptism controversy that the church is, I think, feeling what it might look like for people to just say, you know what? Done. Like I'm not doing church anymore. I'm not going to baptize my children. I'm just kind of like going to unplug. And I think that they realized, or they felt like the stakes felt really high if that happened on a broad scale.
Sure.
So there was a baptism controversy, which basically, and forgive me, I think it was Martinson. You'd have to fact check me here.
This is not something I know. I haven't come across this yet, so this is new to me.
He says that pastors must forcibly baptize children that are not baptized voluntarily by their parents, which sounds, I mean, imagine yourself a pastor in the Danish church going to somebody's house because, Sorensen has not, or so-and-so has not baptized their son. And this actually happened during Kierkegaard's life, a little bit later in his life.
Yeah, got it.
There was a man who was part of a Baptist sect in Copenhagen. He did not baptize his child.
Got it. Okay.
And
So it ties into the Anabaptist stuff too.
Exactly.
And Soren was influenced by the Moravians.
Yes,
his dad used to go to the Moravian services, and it wasn't state sanctioned, but it was tolerated, I guess, at some point, and maybe not over time.
Yeah.
But I think they would have probably, I don't know a lot about Moravian teaching, but I would assume they believed in the believer's baptism. Like today, like baptism is not the fighting issue that it was back in the day,
Right.
but back in the day, it was, man, that was like the Lord's Supper.
Really big deal.
The Lord's
Because
Supper was
your
issue.
whole understanding of salvation,
Sure.
that question kind of addresses so much of what you think about salvation and theology, et cetera, et cetera. So I think even, and I there's mentions of this in the play, because I think this is something that's really particular to his time and place, which is if the state church unity happens, and if the state wants to get aggressive, well, it's going to use. The state is invested in keeping some level of social cohesion for its own sake, for good and for ill, I think.
Sure.
And I think when it starts using, I'm going to speak as Kierkegaard now, when it starts using the church to bring about social cohesion through one of the holy rites of the sacraments of the Lutheran Church, we are now getting into really, really choppy waters. This is starting to get a little bit scary, because the state is kind of using the church to sort of police the populace in a way.
It's like the Inquisition in the
yes,
sense that,
right. And my reading is that Kierkegaard sees this as sort of like the first manifestation of Christendom sort of exerting its influence.
Got it.
I'm paying kind of close attention to these voices in the United States now that are pushing for some sort of Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
And when they talk about it, it sounds like, hey, here's the antidote to this sort of like really burned out fuselage that is whatever secular modernity. Like we've all, it's just like a smoking carcass now. We don't want any of that, but we're being forced into it. There's this alternative Christendom here. Look how bright and shiny and welcoming it is. And I'm like, oh man, give it 10 years. And your enemies will be, I mean, the enemies of the church will start to look like vile offenders and threats to the body politic. You know, that's the direction that it goes if you give it a little bit of a leash. And so I think Kierkegaard, living in that, saw that.
Okay, that makes sense, because he was enough of a thinker to say, okay, what's the principle at risk here, and what happens if we let the state do this? Like where does that go? We're letting the bull loose.
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
And it's going to be like the running of the bulls in Pamplona or whatever. Once you let the bulls run loose, they got.
You're not going to get them back in the pen.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bull. You know.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, it's gonna gore you. I could see him putting two and two together. And since I haven't got that middle section of the book yet done with Joachim Garf, you know, since I've read some of the beginning and a lot of the end, it's that big fat middle is still waiting for me. That book is thick, man.
It is.
So I'm
middle section is going to talk about Regina a lot.
Oh, right. Okay.
So you've got that. I mean, I love that story.
Does she come up in the play at all?
She does come up in the play, but she does not. But she does not appear in the play.
Yeah, it doesn't appear yet. That would be a little weird. Special guest, Regina Olsen.
So, Eric, I'll tell you something. Because she's such a crucial figure in his life, I mean, you could argue Dad, Regina, Meinster.
Oh, absolutely.
Are like the three figures of his life that were most influential.
So odd he doesn't talk about his mom much. So
hardly at all. Like hardly at all. Which you can have a little fun with that.
It's a study in psychology. Like I'm a counselor, so like I'm putting all this stuff together. Like, okay, Dad was this way, Mom was this way. Mom was illiterate, the second wife, and you know, got her pregnant. Like it's a little bit some dysfunction back there.
For sure. Sure.
Yeah.
So I so wanted Regina in the play because, you know, this like bright beam of light that I thought about, all right, what if I just take
these two heads of Soren and bang them together?
I thought, what if I select someone from the audience to just stand up at certain moments? You know, a young woman of approximating her age.
That'd be cool.
I thought about it and I thought, man,
it's a little much.
I think it'll take people out of the plays. And I still every once in a while kind of think, it's not too late. I could try that. But I really do think it's a tough thing to ask an audience member to do, even a confident one. And I think it also will take people out of the play because they'll think, wait, am I going to get nominated to stand up in the middle of this play and represent somebody? I do not want that. You know?
Yeah, right. Start getting sweaty palms and stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, my buddy Jeremiah he's a dead ringer for Soren. It's amazing. Like he's a great actor. He's now down at Sight and Sound, which is a huge biblical theater company close by.
Yeah.
But I've thought about we've talked about this. Like we could recreate Soren's story in Lancaster. Like keep it on the cheap. Like use Lancaster City. Have an accident happen that he gets knocked in the head, and all of a sudden Jeremiah is now Soren.
Is now Soren Kierkegaard in Lancaster?
He's crossed the line, you know. And I think because Jeremiah is so talented, I should send you a copy of his video, a link of the geese, where he talks about the wild geese and how the wild goose is trying to convince the other geese to kind of fly, and they won't. It's beautiful. Like he's just so good. He's so talented. We got a minute left here. It's 1 minute, so you got the 1 minute warning. I'm going to just let you talk. Do what you got to do. Anything that we haven't talked about so far.
I'll just plug the play a little bit more.
Absolutely.
If you're interested in learning more, kierkegaardplay.com. It's got a little about me, about the director, about the actors, about the stage manager, about everybody. a little bit more about the play. If people want to buy tickets, they can buy tickets there if you live anywhere in the Chattanooga area.
Cool.
And by the way,
I'll put that in the description if I think
please
about it.
do. Please do.
Yeah,
and if you listen to this podcast and end up coming to the play, please come find me after the performance. I'd love to meet you.
We'll see if we can swing down there. Jeremiah's talked about coming to the play.
I would love it. Just let me know, and I'll make sure that you guys get.
I'm so easy to spot. I'm 6'8", man.
Oh wow, you will be easy to spot.
And I'll probably be wearing a Kierkegaard shirt too. So,
that sounds great.
Okay, we're going to conclude. It's a pleasure talking to you. I think we could talk for hours. I'm sure of it. But God bless.
It's a pleasure, Eric. God bless.